Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Samantha and I make EUC and mental health content. I'm also a psychiatrist working and living in Christchurch, New Zealand. Recently, one of my viewers asked me to talk more about their inner child because they found my previous video on this topic helpful. So today, I'm going to discuss what happens to a child when they experience a role reversal with their parents, how this could affect them as adults, and why this may or may not be a problem, depending on their context and perception. As usual, please note that my content is slow but informative. I can't offer you dopamine or excitement, but if you wish to listen to a story and learn a thing or two about life, then you have come to the right place. My patient Larry is a 45-year-old man who described having a difficult childhood when his father abandoned him and his family at the age of 12. He was the oldest of 3 siblings and was suddenly expected to take on many caregiving roles that were traditionally performed by adults. His mother was an alcoholic who was frequently intoxicated and emotionally absent. Although he wasn't physically or emotionally abused, he felt neglected and let down by his parents. Larry had to leave school early to work and support his family. He served as an emotional sounding board for his mother, who grieved incessantly for his father's departure. His uncle supported him as best he could, but Larry was mostly alone throughout his adolescence and early childhood. Larry did not make friends at school because he could not relate to anybody his age. He felt more mature and enjoyed spending time with people much older than him. Larry is now married to his wife and they have 2 children together. Unfortunately, his ability to provide for his family was threatened by months of unemployment following a back injury. Larry was advised by his GP to rest and attend regular physiotherapy, but he feels guilty about missing work. He can't seem to prioritize his needs and refused to accept help from others, even though his income was partially supplemented by his health insurance. It did little to mitigate his anxiety. His identity as a strong, dependable provider was gradually being eroded by his disability, and he felt lost and alone. His therapist had been working with him for many months to no avail before he was referred by his GP to see me. Larry was skeptical about what I had to offer because he did not find traditional antidepressants helpful. But he was desperate for a solution and eager to hear what I had to say. In 1974, family therapist Salvador Minuchin developed structural family therapy, which examined relationships among family members and how they contributed to problems. He suggested that, for dysfunctional families to heal, they need to change the family's rules rather than focusing on individual behaviors. Minuchin introduced the term parentification, which was later defined as a child taking on developmentally inappropriate parent or adult-like roles and responsibilities. This phenomenon was later studied extensively by researchers, and I'm going to share some of their findings with you. Psychologists typically distinguish 2 forms of parentification, which are instrumental and emotional parentification. The former describes a child taking on practical and caregiving responsibilities, while the latter describes a child becoming responsible for the emotional needs of the parent or the family. Examples of instrumental parentification include looking after younger siblings, cooking most meals, managing household tasks, acting as a language or cultural broker for parents, while being the household financial provider. In this case, a teenage sibling babysitting his younger sibling once in a while is not considered parentification. However, it may be considered parentification if they are effectively raising them. Examples of emotional parentification include being a parent's confidant, mediating parental conflicts, comforting a parent after relationship problems, or feeling responsible for the parent's happiness. Emotional parentification is generally considered more harmful because it interferes with the child's normal psychological development. Parentification typically results from the intentional or unintentional abdication of parenting responsibilities, either by neglect or abuse. Common reasons for this include parental mental or physical illness, parental physical disability, socioeconomic circumstances such as poverty, eviction, war or famine, dysfunctional family dynamics such as domestic violence, and migration. Additionally, parents who are parentified themselves may perpetuate this practice by expecting their children to do the same, creating a culture that is passed down for generations. Although parentification can lead to increased rates of depression, anxiety, substance use, poor physical health, and educational attainment, it is not inherently pathological as long as the child receives support and recognition. When children assume parental roles of moderate intensity in a time-limited manner, this can help them develop coping skills by fostering self-reliance, which contributes to healthy identity formation and improved self-esteem. Parentification is also associated with higher risk aversion and greater resilience in the face of setbacks. In a recent systematic review of 95 studies, researchers found that parentification may have both positive and negative impacts. The results suggest that parentification is a complex process with many mediating factors that could affect youth outcomes. When children perceive parentification as unfair or being robbed of their childhood, they are more likely to feel resentful and overloaded. Although this was not addressed in the study, I suspect the introduction of social media has only exacerbated the problem by allowing children to compare themselves with their peers. Parentified children are also more likely to make mistakes with enduring social and psychological consequences due to a limited opportunity to learn, observe, and utilize adaptive coping strategies from positive adult role models. The researchers point out that the current literature is biased towards negative outcomes. It is important to note that some parentified children may emerge into adulthood relatively unscathed, despite the adversities they experienced. However, the reasons for this deserve more attention. As I was saying, Larry seems skeptical that I could help because he has already tried several antidepressants to no avail. His therapist had been working with him to address his guilt and identity erosion, but this does not appear to be enough. I asked Larry if there was anything he wanted from me, and he responded in a cheeky voice by asking me to take away his pain so he could return to work. Larry, I'm glad we're having this discussion while you still have your whole life ahead of you. I hate to imagine what you might do when you retire, I said. Retire? Shit, I have never thought of that, he replied. Do you think your body can take this punishment forever? If it's not your back, then something else has got to give. Upon hearing that, Larry paused and stared blankly at my office window before letting out a grunt. And then I continued by saying, aging also comes with a whole host of diseases, such as diabetes, hypertension, strokes, heart disease, cancer, dementia. Okay, I get it. What's your point? He interrupted me. The point is, Larry, knowing what you know now, you know I won't be of much help even if I could fix your back, which I can't, because there are so many other things in life that could stop you from working. Are you going to spend the rest of your life obsessing over them? I said. Well, no. But that doesn't make me feel any better. I mean, what do I do now? He replied. We then spent a lot of time exploring his childhood, specifically the pain of being abandoned by his father, the repeated betrayals by his mother, who always picked the bottle over him, the grief of having to give up his passion for music, and the jealousy of watching other children play. Larry was animated and talkative until he arrived at the topic of his brothers who have severed ties with him. He hunched over, gazed at the floor, and became sullen. In his effort to provide for his family and support his mother's alcoholism, Larry was constantly overwhelmed and had said some harsh words to his younger brothers that fractured their relationships. This is a burden he continues to carry alone. He had hoped that their shared struggles would bring them closer, but it drove them apart instead, which devastated him. Larry felt his sacrifice was pointless and unappreciated, and out of this grew anger and resentment. He was angry at himself, at his brothers, and above all, at his parents for failing to fulfill their responsibilities. "Larry, you need to forgive them," I said. "Who? My parents?" he replied. "All of them. Your parents, your brothers, and even yourself," I continued. "I don't think you understand, Sam. My anger is what kept me going. I built a good life with it." "Yes, you did, but you can't rest because you're so angry. And now it's destroying you. Can't you see that?" Larry sighed and slumped into the couch. I continued, "I'm not asking you to give up what you have. I'm asking you to give up what you lost. Let that go. Your parents and your brothers were flawed human beings, but so is everyone. And if you can take it easy on them, then you can take it easy on yourself." I spent the rest of the session exploring what forgiveness means and what it might look like to Larry. It involves identifying the source of his anger, acknowledging its effects on his life, developing compassion for those who have wronged him, and releasing his pent-up emotions by consciously choosing to forgive. Forgiveness means accepting the fact that those who wronged you may never face justice or any consequence for their actions. You may despise them, but others may revere them. They may be the villains in your life story, but they may be the heroes in someone else's. Forgiveness means making peace with your enemies. It means forgiving the universe, even though the universe is unforgiving. But this is not to say that anger is useless, because it can give one the strength to overcome adversity, as was the case with Larry, until it started consuming him from within. I reflected deeply on Larry's story and realized how much I related to him. As a gender minority myself, there were countless times I felt betrayed by those whom I thought I could trust and ended up feeling angry, bitter, and resentful. My anger was both empowering and encumbering. Fortunately, I had friends who gave me a valuable perspective, and a therapist whom I saw weekly for more than 4 years to help me process my grief. For Larry, I suspect this is going to be the start of a different journey that involves letting go of the past, accepting the inherent cruelty of this world, and ultimately rediscovering himself. I didn't write him a prescription, but I gave him a map. Larry thanked me and returned to see his therapist. Before I end my video, I want to acknowledge the challenges of parenting and discourage any form of parental blame, as it is unhelpful. Nobody is perfect, and we all deserve compassion. Please speak to a psychiatrist or a therapist if you have unresolved trauma from your childhood. And that is all I wish to say about this topic today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and tell me how you have dealt with your enemies in the past. Until next time, ride safe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!
I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to a kitchen chair. She broke your throne. She cut your hair, and from your lips